From that, went back to Brisbane, because we lived in Brisbane, which was about 11, 12-hour drive north of Sydney, and said, hey babe, Amanda, look, you know, we're going to have to move to Sydney to be able to do this campaign. And so we packed up, sold and sowed everything. That was a word we got directly from the Lord. As we were packing up, he said, no, we'd rented like a U-Haul, a removal truck. And he said, no, I want you to sell and sow everything and go by faith. We'd rented this house for 2 weeks. So we did that. Not that we had a lot, but we paid our bills, sold everything, had to give away half of it because we only had a few days. Sowed what we had left, had enough petrol to get to Sydney, enough money left just to buy dinner. And the next day, we went to bed. We took us some sleeping bags, doonas, pillows, that kind of thing. Went to bed with no money for breakfast and an empty house. 7 kids, number 8 in the belly. Slept on the floor. I just got the best wife, I want to say. Shout out to Amanda. And because she was probably like 4, 5, 6 months pregnant, because this was actually July 25th, 2017. So Bubs was due in September, and so she was 7 months pregnant. And so here we are in this house, no money. We had like $1 or $2 for breakfast, and woke up the next morning, there was $5,500 in our bank account that we weren't expecting. And we were just like, yeah, Jesus. We're thinking, hey man, this will get us all the furniture, get our kids what they need for school, you know, fees and books and uniforms and all that kind of thing. I think it got the school kids stuff, 1 or 2 beds, a fridge, some food, and our house was still 3/4 empty. I went on Facebook, I just was lit up. I was like, see this, guys, within 7 days, our house is going to be filled. And you know what? It was. So, yeah, that was amazing. My faith was ignited through that miracle. I then went back to the 11 Pastors Networks and said, hey guys, here we are. We got the stadium date booked. They wanted a $100,000 deposit to lock it in. Let's go. Not one of them came on board. In fact, not even one church. And so for the next 4 months, I went back to churches and back to churches and could not even find one church to say yes. So here we are, we've got a 100,000 man stadium booked and no one wants to come. We've just moved halfway across the nation. God confirmed that He wanted us there, but things were not looking good. So come November, we registered the ministry, Jesus Loves Australia. And in that moment, things started to unlock. The first church came on board in the beginning of 2018. But here I am, 10 months out. I need 100,000 to lock in that contract. But I didn't even, we had one church and no money. And in fact, it was probably some of the hardest financial times. We were back to believe in God for milk daily, almost daily. And so, yeah, that was it. That's what happened. Come April 2018, I came to America. I did like a conference, a school here in America, and I was trying to rustle up some evangelists that would come and speak at the stadium. What happened while I was here was I came across a video and a video feed. I first went into Orlando. I think that was the time I went up to New York City, because I'd had a word many years before. I was praying in a prayer chapel and I saw 3 big chiefs. And I felt like that God would send us to 3 big cities, and one of them would be New York City. And so I went up there and I was scouting out venues. I'd also, back in 2009, seen a stadium I was over the top of it. I was over this crowd of people. There was 80,000 people there. I knew there was 80,000 people there. I believe there was a roof on the stadium. And as I was coming out, I was like, when is this? And I saw 14 years. From that moment, I did the math. I knew it was 2023. So I always knew that there would be this event in 2023 that had 80,000 people in it, and the stadium had a roof on it. I believe the stadium had a roof on it. Now, here I am, April 2018, I'm flicking through my feed, and Lou Engle is there, and they're praying and fasting for that Billy Graham mantle to come on a generation. Billy Graham had just graduated to glory, and they had done 40 days prayer and fasting. But at the end of that 40 days prayer and fasting, it was in Santa Maria Valley Healing Rooms, someone had a dream that they sucked in their stomach and pulled their belt in another 10 notches, and they extended it from 40 days to 50 days. Remember the number 50. 40 days to 50 days. And this was day 47. So I, go to the airport, pay for a ticket, get into LAX, catch a bus up to Santa Maria Valley Healing Rooms, walk into the back end of this prayer meeting that's going on. There's only 100 or 200 people there, probably a couple hundred people there, and share with the pastor in the back about what we're doing. We're 6 months out from our stadium. And he's like, wow, you guys are doing a stadium event in Australia? We got to get you guys prayed for, because they were praying into this other word, which was about stadium Christianity, the nameless, faceless generation. We built a video around the nameless, faceless generation. So I knew that somehow we were connected to this billion soul harvest, nameless, faceless generation. Like it just was gripping my life and guiding the ministry that the Lord had called me to serve in. So I was there. I tell the pastors, they bring us up on stage, and they start praying over us for the stadium event we were going to do. And when we tell them the date, this lady gets up and she says that she had a dream.
I had a dream one night that I just found out I was pregnant, and my due date was October 12th. And in the dream, another woman comes by and she's pregnant, and her due date is also October 12th. And we were astonished in the dream to have the testimony of two babies that would be born on the same day. So I didn't really know what to make of that dream, but it was just a day or two later at one of our corporate gatherings that one of the leaders brought a man on stage, an Australian man named Shane Deegan. And we didn't have the chance to meet him yet, but this leader had just met him and was excited for Shane to share with us the preparations going on in Australia for a major evangelistic stadium event that he would be having the following year on October 12th.
A couple nights before, now get this, they're in Santa Maria Valley Healing Rooms, St. Mary, and apparently a whole part of the story of that prayer meeting, because I'm on there night 47, I think it was, out of 50, somewhere around that in the last few nights. But in the beginning, they were birthing a baby. And she tells this story about how she saw a woman pregnant, and the due date of the baby being born was October 12, 2018, which is that same day in Australia, because Australia is a day ahead. They're like 15, 16 hours ahead. So the same time it's October 12 in America, that was our date in Australia. And there was no other stadium events going on at that time that anyone knew of. And so I was like super encouraged, because the evangelists I came to America to engage for that event, they had other stuff going on and couldn't come, but I had this word. And so from there, I met some other evangelists in America, and this other guy, he was doing his first stadium event, so we're kind of brainstorming, getting ideas. From there, I went back to Australia, just charged up that the Lord was going to do this. When I got back, the Lord said to me, get out of the boat, walk on water, go back to the stadium and book it. And I was like, but Lord, I can't finalize the contract with without $100,000. He said, go back to the stadium. And I needed to touch base with them anyway, because it had been, several months since I'd spoken to them. And so I book a meeting, go back in there, and the guy I had originally spoken to, he had been moved to another stadium as CEO of that new stadium. So I'm now talking to the number 2 or 3 guys, something like that, of this one. And he loved the idea. He's like, yeah, we haven't had a Christian event here for 20 years. We want to get you guys in there. And so he says, let me get back to you with the costing. So he does up this draft costing, and it was literally 20% that of the first figure I was given. And it was an achievable figure. And I went, wow. I went back to all these churches and pastors' networks I'd been talking to, and immediately a dozen came on, and 50 ended up coming on before the campaign. I think in the end we had over 100 churches. But that just like ignited a faith. We instantly had this committee come together, because I'd made a lot of new friendships with people in Sydney, and boom, this group came together that helped us pull off. So I call them the water walkers, because we had no money. We were believing God for a $2 million event. That significant reduction in the price meant that we needed less than $1 million. I think it brought the budget down to, now we shifted some things, and now we only needed $500,000 cash. So some, the media, Christian media started to get wind of it, words started going out, things were growing. We're believing God for this $100,000 deposit. Actually, I think it was $75,000 deposit, because that shifted in that second quote. And we had this deadline 4 weeks out where we needed that $75,000 deposit. Come that day, we had less than $1,000 in the bank. And we just prayed and fasted, prayed together as a committee. And one of the ladies said she really felt the Lord saying we needed to pray and fast for 3 days. Now, I'm not much of a faster. I'd done a lot of that in my life, double fast, like trying to get to double the blessing, do 40 days, do another 40, and just the Lord had visited me and he said, sons are free. And so, and whenever I go to fast, he says things like, just believe. And that's, been my journey. I'm not against fasting. If the Lord says to you to fast, fast. Just that season for me, he'd taken me into other things. But because everyone was in agreement, and they're like, we got to pray and fast for 3 days, and they really felt it was the Lord, I was like, okay, let's go.